This was different. This was meant for her. That night, he went straight to Clara's house. She was on the porch, stitching a torn curtain, her lamp casting a golden glow that made her look almost ethereal in the dusk. He didn't hide the note. He handed it to her. She read it slowly, her lips pressed thin. Then she set it down and sighed. "You can't fight words, Cole. They'll only throw more." "I don't care about them." "I do," she said, her voice steady. "Not because they're right, but because I've spent too many years letting other people decide how loud my heart should beat. I won't let their bitterness make me small again." Her strength in that moment stunned him. He'd met warriors, outlaws, men who'd stood against guns and storms, but none as strong as the woman before him, holding her pain like a flame instead of a wound. He nodded slowly. "Then we'll let 'em talk, and we'll keep living." And that's what they did. Weeks turned into months. Spring came, and with it, wildflowers that climbed through the cracks in Dry Creek's hard earth. Clara's ranch began to thrive again. Cole helped mend her fences, trade her goods, and bring in fresh cattle. Together they rebuilt not just her home, but a sense of purpose she thought had died long ago. The town began to see what was real, that what they had wasn't scandal, it was love. Quiet and unshakable, built on respect. Still, there was one more test to come. One evening, a storm rolled in from the west, black skies and thunder like cannon fire. The cattle panicked, breaking through the gate and running toward the creek. Clara and Cole rode after them, rain slashing across their faces, lightning splitting the sky. At the far bank, one young steer got trapped in the mud. Cole jumped off his horse, wading in up to his knees. Clara shouted over the storm, "You'll get yourself killed!" He grinned through the downpour. "You said we keep living, remember?" Together they pulled the steer free, slipping, laughing, soaked to the bone. When they finally got back to the barn, breathless and dripping, Clara looked at him. Really looked. The man who'd come to town as a stranger now stood before her like destiny she hadn't known she was, waiting for. In that quiet between thunder and heartbeat, Cole reached for her hand. "Clara," he said softly, "you once told me peace isn't easy to find, but I found mine the day I met you." Her eyes filled, but her smile was steady. "And I found mine the day you told them I was timeless." They didn't need more words. The storm raged on outside, but inside, there was only warmth, the kind that no rumor or year could touch. By morning, the sky cleared. The people of Dry Creek saw the ranch fence still standing, the fields untouched, and the widow and the cowboy riding side by side down Main Street, not hiding, not apologizing, just living. The whispers finally stopped that day, not because people changed, but because truth spoke louder than gossip. Then silence. For the first time in years, Clara felt the warmth of being seen, truly seen. The town would still whisper. They always did. But that night, when she looked out across the fields, she realized something. Love didn't care about years, or gossip, or what the world said was proper. Real love, the kind that lasts, sees through time. And for the first time since John's passing, she smiled. The next few weeks in Dry Creek moved with a strange new rhythm, quieter, more watchful. After the night at the saloon, the whispers didn't stop, but they changed. People still talked, but now they did it softer, careful not to meet Clara's eyes when she passed. Some out of guilt, others out of curiosity, and a few, maybe even admiration. Clara tried to return to her routine, mending fences, feeding the horses, tending the little garden behind her house. But her thoughts were never still anymore. Every time the wind shifted, she half expected to hear Cole's voice, low and steady, asking if she needed a hand. He'd become a quiet presence in her life, not a rescuer, not a savior, but something deeper. A companion who saw her not for what she'd lost, but for what still shone in her. Cole, for his part, found reasons to stay in Dry Creek longer than planned. He helped the pastor with repairs, lent his horse to the sheriff when needed, and started taking odd jobs at nearby ranches. Folks began to see him not just as the stranger who'd defended the widow, but as someone who fit, a man of quiet decency, the kind the town didn't see much of anymore. One morning, Clara found him fixing the fence line that bordered her property. She hadn't asked him to, but there he was, sleeves rolled up, sun glinting off his forearms, humming an old tune. "You know," she said, crossing her arms, "most men ask before they start working on another person's land." Cole looked up and grinned. "Most men don't see a busted post and walk away from it." She smiled despite herself. "You planning on staying in Dry Creek long, Mr. Bennett?" He shrugged, driving a nail into the wood. Don't rightly know. But some places have a way of making a man think about roots. Their eyes met again, the kind of look that says everything without needing a word. For a long while, neither spoke. The only sound was the rhythm of hammer and wind. But life has a way of testing what's newly built. A week later, a group of cattlemen came riding in from neighboring Red Hollow, rough types, known for stirring trouble when the whiskey hit hard. They'd come to Dry Creek before, looking for easy fights and easy targets. This time their eyes landed on Cole and Clara. It started small, mocking. Laughter when they saw them walking together by the churchyard. Then one evening, as Cole rode into town, he found a note pinned to the saloon door. A real cowboy doesn't waste his time on old mares. He crumpled it, jaw tight. He could handle insults. He'd faced worse on the trail. But has been through enough. The next morning, Clara went to the well to draw water. Her hands were steady, but her mind wasn't. She'd grown used to solitude. But something about that stranger's voice had stirred. A warmth she thought had long since gone cold. As fate would have it, she saw him again, at the churchyard fence, helping the pastor mend a broken rail. "You work fast," she said. Cole looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. "Work's easy when you've got peace in it. Hard to find peace on the trail. Seems easier here." She smiled faintly. "Peace isn't as easy as it looks. People here have long memories." He nodded, understanding. They remember the wrong things. Days passed, and their paths crossed more often. At the market, at Sunday service, at the edge of the fields where the sunset spilled red across the sky. He'd walk her home sometimes, talking about the ranches he'd seen, the stars over the plains, the sound of coyotes when the night went still. And she'd listen, not because his stories were grand, but because they made her feel alive again. But in small towns, joy is a dangerous thing. By the third week, tongues wagged louder. "Have you seen her?" "Laughing like a girl again," one woman sneered. "That cowboy's half her age." "She should know better," another said. "It's embarrassing." Clara tried to ignore them, but one evening, as she walked into the saloon to fetch a letter that had come by stagecoach, the room went silent. Then laughter broke out, quiet at first, then cruel. "Evening, Miss Clara," a young ranch hand called. "Looking for your young buck?" The laughter grew. She froze, cheeks burning. Her heart ached, not from shame, but from exhaustion. She turned to leave. Then came a voice, firm, calm, and cutting through the noise like a knife through silk. "That's enough." Cole stepped through the crowd, his boots thudding against the wooden floor. His gaze was cold as steel. "Y'all got something funny to say about her. You can say it to me." The laughter died. One of the men tried to speak. "We're just having a bit of fun, no harm." Cole interrupted, his tone sharper now. "Fun? You call mocking a woman who's lived more courage than you boys ever will fun. She's worked this land, raised her family, and faced more loss than your kind ever could stomach." The room fell silent. Cole looked around once more, then at Clara. His voice softened. "She's not old. She's timeless to me." The words hung in the air, echoing in the stunned quiet. Clara's eyes welled with tears she didn't try to hide. Without another word, Cole offered her his arm. She took it, her pride steady, her spirit somehow lighter. Together, they walked out of that saloon under the burning orange sky, while the same wind that once carried cruel whispers now carried something softer. Respect. As they reached her porch, she turned to him, voice trembling. "You didn't have to do that." "I did," he said simply. "Because you deserve better." The sun hung low over Dry Creek, painting the dusty town in strokes of gold and sorrow. The air was dry, the wind restless, and every door hinge seemed to creak with the memory of stories too heavy to tell. At the far edge of town stood a modest home, white paint flaking, a porch swing swaying gently, like it still remembered the laughter that once filled the air. Inside, Clara Mayfield, a woman of 48, stood before her mirror. Her hands trembled slightly as she pinned her hair up. It wasn't vanity, it was habit, a ritual she'd held onto since the days when her husband John was still alive. He'd been a rancher, a kind man with eyes like a calm river, and a laugh that made her forget how harsh the world could be. But 5 winters ago, that laugh had gone silent. Since then, Clara had worn her age the way the desert wore its scars, visible, but proud. She'd raised her 2 sons into strong men, kept her late husband's ranch running, and still managed to greet every morning with a quiet kind of courage. Yet in Dry Creek, courage wasn't always enough. When she walked into town for supplies, whispers followed her like shadows. "There she is again," a younger woman murmured near the general store, pretending to adjust her bonnet. "Still dressing up like she's 20. Poor thing doesn't realize her time's long gone," another replied with a smirk. Clara heard them. She always did. The gossip rolled off her shoulders most days. But sometimes, when the wind hit just right, it found a crack in her armor. She'd return home, sit by the fire, and trace her wedding band's ghost mark on her finger. She missed love, not the idea of it, but the kind that saw through the years, the kind that made you feel like time itself stood still. That day, as she carried her groceries through the dusty main street, she noticed a new face. A tall stranger leaned against a post outside the saloon, hat tipped low, boots coated in the long miles of travel. He was the kind of man who carried stories in his silence. The townsfolk noticed him too, especially the unmarried ladies, who'd been waiting for something, or someone new to gossip about. The stranger's eyes lifted when Clara passed. Their gazes met, not with surprise, but recognition, as though two souls that had both lost something had finally found a reflection of understanding. "Afternoon, ma'am," he said, voice deep and gentle. She nodded politely, not stopping. "Afternoon, sir." He smiled. "Name's Cole Bennett. Just got in from Abilene." "Welcome to Dry Creek," she replied softly. "It's a quiet town unless you count the rumors." That made him chuckle, a low, warm sound that lingered even after she'd walked away. By evening, word had spread that the mysterious cowboy had spoken to the widow. The saloon filled with talk. "Cole Bennett, huh? Looks like the widow's already caught his eye. She's old enough to be his mother." "Don't be cruel," another voice cut in, though weakly. "She—" Years later, when folks spoke of them, they didn't call her the widow anymore. They called her Clara Bennett, the woman who proved love doesn't fade with time. It deepens, and in every heart that watched them ride into the sunset, something shifted, a reminder that real beauty isn't bound by youth, and real love doesn't count the years. If this story touched your soul, don't forget to subscribe for more tales of courage, love, and second chances. Because sometimes the best stories remind us that time may wrinkle the skin, but it can never age the heart.